Hey, what up, fam? Holderhek back with another video. Today we're going to go over something that made Vanilla WoW pretty damn unique compared to retail, and that's going to be the resistance fight. I'm going to be doing a small series of these videos. This one's going to be fire resistance, there's going to be a nature resistance video, and a frost resistance video, as those are the three elements you primarily have to deal with in Vanilla WoW. So, just like I did in my pre-BIS guide, and will be doing in my other equipment guides, I'm gonna go through a couple sets of gear and show you what items to get, why you should get them, and because this is a resistance gear build, we're not gonna really worry about who wants these items or how hard they're gonna be to acquire, because it's gonna be a small subset of people that actually acquire resistance gear, and that's due to the new ways that the game is played. The old way of thinking was build a set of resistance gear, use that set of resistance gear on the resistance fights, and deal with your loss of DPS and crit or healing power, whatever. The new way of thinking is simply get as many consumables as possible. Let's say, for example, you're in a fire resistance fight. You can pre-pot a greater fire resistance potion. That's going to absorb about 3,000 fire damage. You can use a Juju Ember, which is going to give you 15 more fire resistance. You, as a shaman, have a fire resistance totem. That's going to give you 60 fire resistance. You can also be ultra try-hard, go into Blackrock Spire with a priest or a mind control helmet, mind control a Scar Shield Spellbinder, and give yourself 81 fire resistance from their resist fire spell. These are all things you can do in your regular gear to shore up your defenses against the incoming fire damage. But let's just say for a moment, maybe the entire raid gets ported into Blackrock Spire, and we all get the fire resistance buff. Now we're at 81 fire resistance. Then we stack on top of that fire resistance totem. We got 8 shamans in the raid, everybody. Then we pop our Juju Ember, we get buffed by the druid we dragged to the raid, we got 20 more fire resistance, boom, 176 buffed, we don't need gear. And then we die, because people always die. And then we have to go back to Blackrock Spire and get that buff again. The entire raid has to go get that buff again. This is why you have a set of resistance gear. Just stack those buffs on the resistance gear, and you can ignore mechanics. So that's why I'm making these videos. Let's get into fire resistance first. We're gonna have melee DPS fire resistance, healing fire resistance for Phase 1 and Phase 3, and let's go. This will be your basic fire resistance gear set for Molten Core. With this gear, you're gonna notice there's really not that many pieces that differ from the Black Dragon Scale set that I built initially. The cool thing is, that's the cool thing. The Black Dragon Scale set is going to act as your fire resistance gear. It's got a ton of attack power, a little bit of fire resistance, and if you end up using the boots, it gets a nice little bonus to fire resistance there as well. You don't need the boots though, that's the cool part about this set. Just enchant them with fire resistance here, and throw on that Molten Helm, which is, you know, kind of a piece of crap, but you get that fire resistance up there as well. That's 40 just from enchants. Throw on the Drake Fire Amulet, which we talked about before, is a quest reward. And then the Wildfire Cape, pretty easy to get from Pyroguard Emberseer in BRD. We're gonna be running BRD a billion times, so pick up the Wildfire Cape and boom! You have your entire fire resistance set. How easy. As you can see in this gear set, you're gonna have 142 fire resistance unbuffed. If you're using mind control buffs and, you know, anything else in the game, yeah, that's probably overkill. This will be a good set if you're not using those buffs, or if you just want to completely cheese all mechanics whatsoever and ignore them as you resist almost all the damage. So 142 unbuffed, add your totem, you got 202. Add Mark of the Wild, you're sitting well above 200 fire resistance, so things like Baron Geddon's Inferno Tick and Ragnaros' Lava Splash are all things that you can essentially laugh at. Speaking of those abilities, let's get into when and where and why and how and who and, I don't know, any other qualifier as to why you would use this gear, okay? So, we got up here, we got Baron Geddon. The main thing you need to deal with Baron Geddon with fire resist gear, and again, big caveat, you don't need fire resist gear to fight Baron Geddon. He has one ability, Inferno, where he just sits there and pulses really high fire damage. It goes 500, 500, 1000, 1000, 1500, 1500, and he'll do this 6 to 10 times. So obviously, if he does it 10 times and you're standing there the whole time, you are going to get melted faster than a T1000. But if you have a greater fire resistance potion and you use the mind control buffs, again, I'm not going to keep mentioning these things, but it's like if you use those things, obviously you can ignore a couple of those ticks, but you're still going to have to run out. If you had our fire resistance gear on top of your totem, on top of Mark of the Wild, on top of all those buffs, on top of greater fire resistance potion, or fire protection potion, you know, you can ignore most of that. Maybe you'll run out the last 2 or 3 ticks, but you're good. Just stand there and beat the crap out of the boss. And it makes all of Baron Geddon's, the rest of his mechanics, like kind of a joke. It's like not that big of a deal. So then you move on to Ragnaros, where typically people would use fire resistance gear. That is for a couple of reasons. One, he has this AoE damage lava splash thing at all times. It's just like, you just get hit by lava splash. And as long as you have over about 150 fire resistance, it's not going to hurt you too bad. But imagine now you're sitting above 200 and you really haven't sacrificed that many stats to get there, and you're resisting 50% of the damage coming in at you, or just resisting it altogether. Okay, so I feel like I have potentially made a good enough case, like 7 or 8 times in a row now, for why resistance gear is useful. So I'm just going to go into the mechanics a little bit more, and then we're just going to assume from now on that this resistance gear is good for something. Okay, cool, great, thanks. So, beyond Lava Splash, you're also going to have to deal with the Sons of Flame, because there is an extremely good chance that the first couple of times you kill Ragnaros, you're not going to kill him before his Submerge phase. Maybe you will. Maybe you're going to be in like one of the top guilds in the world, and you guys are going to be pushing a week 1 rag kill in greens, and we're all going to just love you so much for it. But anyway, let's just assume you're 99.999% of the people on the planet, and that won't happen. So Ragnaros is going to submerge, and then he's going to pop out his Sons of Flame. Being an Enhanced Shaman, you're going to want to really, really avoid these guys, as they have an AoE fire damage and an AoE mana burn. So just get the hell out of there and let other people deal with that. Your fire resistance gear is still going to be useful here, but if you get around those guys, you're not going to have any more mana, like you have any to begin with, but you're not going to have any more mana, and it's going to be difficult for you to continue the fight. So avoid the Sons of Flame, pop back in, and then one final thing, you have to avoid hitting other people with the Hammer of Ragnaros. As you can see here, because you have a mana bar, and you're going to be standing next to other people who don't have a mana bar, he's going to say, by fire be purged, and hit you, thus knocking back all the rogues and warriors, and making them very, very mad. So, you deal with that by letting them stand here, and then you stand over here and drop your totems here. And then when you run away from the Sons of Flame, obviously you're gonna go there, and they're gonna go there, and it's gonna be fine, okay? Just tweak some of these basic strategies a little bit, and you will be good to go. I've been rambling on enough about that. let's go into the easy way to play the game, as a healer. So, let's say you want to heal on Ragnaros and make your life a lot simpler. So now you need far less fire resistance. As you can see here, we only have 106. With your totem, you're at 166. With Mark of the Wild, you're at 186. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Then we just stand back and shoot the P-beam. Couple of pieces of fire resistance gear here. You got your fiery chain shoulders, fiery chain girdle. Very easy materials to craft that stuff. And then the rest of this is either quest rewards or blues you should pick up along the way while dungeon grinding your actual gear and, you know, to level 60. So, with all this gear, you're going to see stuff like this that has, you know, damage and healing on it, but most of it you try to get with MP5, 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 and just stack that as much as possible. That's your most important stat as a Restoration Shaman. I'm going to put the links to this set down in the description, as with all the other sets, but this is going to be the type of stuff that you're going to be wearing primarily as an enhancement shaman, because you're not going to be taking Earth Fury. You're not going to be taking the good healing pieces. And this is a theme that's going to continue further on as we go into the further phases and other resistance encounters. If you're going to be healing on those fights, and your primary role is damage, you're just not going to have good healing gear. So get used to it. You got 5,000 mana, you got 162 plus healing, you got 27 mana per 5, and you're wearing like level 50 blues. You'll be fine, the raid will be fine, the boss will die, and you can go back to hitting stuff. Speaking of hitting stuff, we're gonna go into the last time you're probably going to need fire resistance gear in the game, unless you really want to troll fire mages, which it's a really good use of fire resistance gear and I highly recommend it. But there are 3 drakes in Blackwing Lair that have an ability called Flame Buffet. I will continually refer to that ability as the Flame Buffet because it's funny. So, when the drakes do the Flame Buffet, you can see here that there you go. It inflicts 139 to 161 fire damage and increases the amount of fire damage you take by 150. So that just keeps hitting you over and over and over and over and over again. I believe if the thing is looking at you or you're in its LOS. So you have to kind of go out of its LOS to heal and then go back in and deal with that thing constantly ticking on you. A way to cheese that mechanic, which is what we're in the business of doing, is to wear some fire resistance gear. So this is that fire resistance gear. You're going to notice the Black Dragon Scale set hasn't changed since the Phase 1. We've added the boots to get that little bonus we were talking about, but then basically every other piece of gear has improved, as it should. There is one other crafted item on this list, which is the Chromatic Gauntlets. This is also part of your Phase 3 set, so you don't really have to change those out either. As with Baron Geddon and Molten Core, you don't need fire resistance for these fights. It just helps, and if you've gotten the positioning down and you've outgeared the place a little bit, and I'll mention it again, if you're using a ton of consumables, you really don't need this gear. But it is a nice to have, and I still think you should get it. Especially because you will already have it from the first set of resist gear you made, when you actually needed it. Weird how that works. With that, we will come to the end of my fire resistance fights video. As I said in the very beginning, we're going to be talking about nature resistance and frost resistance in the upcoming videos. With those resistance fights, there will be absolutely no question on what you need and how much of it you need and if you need it at all, because if you are in the Huhuran soaking group, guess what? If you don't have like 250 nature resistance, you in the raid die. If you are fighting Saffron and you don't have like 250 frost resistance, you die. So those things are a little bit more cut and dry. This video went into a little bit more of the necessities of fire resistance at all than I felt like it really needed to be in the onset, but we got where we needed to go. Now you know what you need to know, and I'd love for something to rhyme with go, but shout out to my friend Joe. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, man. Making these are becoming more and more fun. As with everything else, I'm sure you're gonna have questions, clarifications, tell me why I'm wrong in the comments below. I'm gonna do my best to answer everybody as quickly as I can, since I'm getting ready to know life for the release of Classic. I should be able to answer everybody. We'll see. You guys have a fantastic rest of your day, and toodaloo till next time.